Hi, my name's Emily Sheppard. I'm from Nipaluna, Hobart. I play violin and viola and an assortment of other strange instruments, sometimes made from kelp or eelskin. I also am a marine scientist. I've studied seaweed, and at the moment I'm obsessed with listening to the sounds of the Great Southern Reef, including some of the reefs around King Island.
Is there sounds around the reefs?
There are sounds, yes, mostly snapping shrimp. They're one of the loudest things in the ocean. So just about anywhere you put a hydrophone in surface waters, whether that be temperate or tropical, you're going to be hearing snapping shrimp. Sort of sounds like bubble wrap popping, but a bit more random. But then there's also some other sounds. If you listen long enough, you might be lucky to hear a dolphin or even some fish farts.
Is it actually, when you think about it, is the underwater world almost like more intriguing and interesting than what's above there?
Well, I certainly think so. I will spend as much time as I possibly can underwater. What I think is so amazing is that you cannot see it from above the water, and you also cannot hear it. But as soon as you break that surface and you have a mask on, yeah, all of a sudden there is a whole other world.
Because we often call people colourful, but we don't compare with what's under there, isn't it?
No, it's very true.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah, actually one of the most colourful spots I've seen underwater is right here on King Island at the blowhole. Beautiful sponge garden there. I just got to have a little look last time I was visiting, just on my final day, and I was like, oh wow, this is a very, very special spot.
If it was only 10 degrees warmer. You never think that?
Well, you just get a thicker wetsuit.
Yeah, okay, but I think if it's nice and warm, would be nice, like in the tropics.
You know what? I'm such a sucker for cold water. Like, there's something about the refreshing jumping into a really, really cold water. I sometimes have been diving a bit in the tropics, and I miss the cold water, to be honest.
Now, that's all about the water and underwater, but go back. How did you start with music, and why the instruments you chose? Why classical music?
Yeah, I had a musical family. I grew up singing jazz standards with my dad, and we used to make little cute family bands. And I knew that my grandma had some violins because there was a few members of my family who played violin, like my grandma. And apparently, as the story goes, I rang her up and asked her to bring them over. My whole family's from New Zealand, and we were living in Australia. So she brought them over on the next plane trip. But of course, it was too big. I was only 6, and it was a full-size violin. So my parents got me a little quarter size, and Dad started me off. And I spent the next 15 years studying violin intensively, studying classical music.
15 years is intensive by the sound of it.
Yeah.
How far can you go? To what stage? Is there a time stage that, because I'm sure there's some people that have done exactly the same, but they decided after 12 years, no, I'm never going to get to where I would like to be. Have you been able to get to where you want to be, like to be?
Yeah. I mean, I think on the one hand, it's endless, right? Like the journey of any instrument is absolutely endless, and that's why it's such a kind of beautiful pursuit in a way. But yeah, I got to a point where I could play with orchestras and I could play with professional groups around Australia and yeah, pretty much play the music that I wanted to play.
Is it a little bit like with some musicians, you give them a piece of paper with the keys and the structure, and where other musicians, they listen for 2 seconds, 10 seconds, and play it? Where are you? Where would you say, oh, I'm a bit more like...
Yeah, well, at that time, so in my late teens and early 20s, I was really training classical music, Western classical music. I was really training like reading notation. So that became very much a second language, almost a first language, like just because I started with it so young. Yeah, so I would be able to look at a piece of music and sort of hear it in my head from reading it and be able to, depending on the complexity, pretty much sight read it. which is, you know, a very important skill to develop as a classical musician.
So you can already hear what you read.
Yeah, yeah.
That's quite amazing.
Yeah.
Well, for
Probably
us
not,
ordinaries.
Yeah, not to the same extent as Mozart or Beethoven, but, you know, us mortals, we try.
Yeah.
But after that, I moved to Tasmania, just over a decade ago, and I started learning all sorts of different music, primarily from oral traditions. So I started developing my ear, started improvising, learning some Celtic folk, learning some gypsy jazz, manouche music, some Japanese music, and collaborating with artists who didn't read notation. And that's been a really, really beautiful journey. And I find that it's a different place in the brain, playing music from notation or playing it by ear.
Yeah.
And so it's really nice to be able to sort of combine those two things, or just draw on whichever one I need in my toolkit at that particular moment. Because sometimes using notation can just be kind of a shortcut. But in the other way, learning something by ear can be a very lovely and quite deep experience where you really get to know the intricacies of that piece of music and of all the different people on YouTube who are playing that music, or on the albums that you have that you're listening to. I think that's quite a cool thing about folk traditions and oral traditions, is that you're sort of outsourcing to community when you're learning a tune. I've been learning a new tune for this festival, and you know, I find some YouTube videos that have 20 views, and it's someone in the folk scene in another country, and it's like really cool because I'm learning a little bit about the way that they play that piece, which comes out of their community and their tradition, as well as people from other countries. And yeah, pretty beautiful.
You mentioned this festival, and then we talk about the Moonbird Festival, of course.
Yes.
How did you get involved with Moonbird?
Yeah, well, I've sort of knew Simon and Anthony just from around the place. I guess it's a fairly small community in Australia of classical musicians, and classical musicians who are really into nature and interested in, I guess, the power of art in conservation. And so they approached me a few years ago when they were starting this festival, and I was like, yeah, get to come to King Island and play music with these wonderful people.
And what were your first impressions when you came out here for the first time?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. Yeah, I've loved it every single time I've come. It's
because
it's such a magical place. There's some really magical people living here. I love diving, so it's just an absolute haven for diving.
Now, festival is from the 6th to the 9th next month. Where, when, how are you going to perform?
Yeah, there's loads of different concerts.
Loads?
Yeah.
Whoop. That's good.
Yeah, we've got James Crabb, an amazing accordionist, coming over, and we're doing some piazzolla and some traditional Scottish and Shetland tunes with him. There's a saxophonist called Alice Morgan who's coming, and we're playing some new and old tunes with her. And we have Andrew Blanche and Eugenia playing guitar and singing. And we're also just doing some string quartet music. I'm also running a sound bathing on Saturday morning, which is featuring some of the recordings I've been taking of these reefs and some improvised violin, voice over the top.
Yeah. So quite a program.
Lots of music to learn, yeah.
And any time for anything else? Because I believe you like to be underwater, but it's
yes, well, no, that's why I came early.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you tried playing the violin underwater?
Not yet.
No?
But it's, it's on the horizon. I have some violins made out of bull kelp. So I think they'll be the ones to take underwater.
And what do you think? You might attract fish to come to you then, or you think you scare them all off? And...
Oh, hopefully attract them, but who knows? I reckon. I reckon attract them.
Yeah, thinking about it, hey, it's like playing the violin. In reality, the violin is very much a multi-instrument, isn't it? Because you can listen sometimes to a hard rock band, to country music, to whatnot music where violins are used.
Yeah, oh, that's it. It's really great instrument for playing across many, many different genres.
Yeah.
And relatedly, there's the eel skin instrument that I mentioned. That's sort of a thing that doesn't really exist. It's a new invention that my collaborator and I worked on and got a luthier to make. But that's based on skin instruments in general. So, for example, the Chinese violin, the erhu, is a python skin. And there's many other bowed skin instruments around the world. And a lot of them do not have a fingerboard, like a violin where you just press down a little bit and you're able to depress the string. There's a much larger gap between the neck and the strings. And because of that, you can bend the string in a certain way, or it makes you play in a certain way, which is quite different to a wooden violin. But yeah, between that instrument and the standard wooden violin, yeah, there is so much repertoire and so many traditions out there to soak up and learn.
What would you say to people here on King Island that might not even be that much into classical music, different styles of music? What would you say? Just stay away, or here's your opportunity?
Yeah, well, I think as far as classical music goes, this program is really diverse. Because we have saxophone, for example. You often don't hear that in classical music. The program with James Crabb, we're playing Piazzolla, which is, there's some Argentinian music, tango. And we have the sound bathing, which is who knows what. It could be anything. So you may hate it or you may love it, but you'll be coming along for the ride and for the experiment.
I'm curious now, because you might play a little bit for me then, so we can let people sort of hear what it's all about.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'll play a tune I've been learning this week, just the last couple of days, for one of the programs.
Oh, this is now an excuse, sort of like, if it doesn't sound good, folks, this is all to do with she's learning. Yeah,
That's it, just put that in there.
Yeah.
So it's a traditional Shetland tune called Der Treue Bern, and it's on the program with James Crabb. So it'll be in a full arrangement with string quartet and piano accordion. But I'll play you this little solo violin bit.
There's only one thing we have to do. We're going to move then to the other studio,
right.
So I can plug you in and, well, you make it sound good, but I can only make it maybe a little bit better if I play a little bit with the buttons.
Sounds great.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.